This is the Leica CM Zoom. I've shot a couple of rolls of film with it, and I do have some thoughts that I want to talk about. Hi, this is Hopkins. I'm an average film hobbyist now based in the UK. If you're new to this channel, it's okay, because it's also my first time to this channel. I've never done a video like this before. The reason why I wanted to make this video is because when I first met this thing on the internet, I wanted to do some studies about it, right? However, I found out that unlike Minilux, its predecessor, not too many people are talking about the CM series. Even though this is arguably the best point-and-shoot camera made by Leica, right? So now, after 2 rolls, I think I probably should do a video on my first impressions for anybody else who may be interested in this camera. So, without further ado, let's first talk about what is CM and why a CM. Speaking of the compact point-and-shoot camera made by Leica, most people will immediately think of the Minilux series, right? The prime lens version has an incredible 40mm f2.4 lens, one of the fastest point-and-shoot camera in the world. It is incredible both in the image result and build quality. However, notoriously, the Minilux series has a fatal problem, the E02 error, which basically means that the ribbon cable that connects the lens and the board will eventually break, turning your fancy little camera a very hefty paperweight. And 10 years after the launch, or technically 9 years, the CM series is Leica's response to that problem. And not only that, the CM also have some other usability improvements, such as the camera itself can now remember the settings. You do not have to adjust your exposure compensation or flash every time you turn on the camera. There's an improved coating of the lens, resulting in a slightly better image. And the most important thing, at least to me, is this new look. The CM now has a much modern aesthetic than the Minilux. It is essentially a compact M, as the name suggests, rather than, just a high-end point-and-shoot camera like Minilux. So the answer is quite clear. Why would anybody want to get a CM? That is because, in one sentence, CM is just a better Minilux and the best point-and-shoot camera Leica has ever made. And personally, I'm okay with the £200 price bump for the usability, longevity, and the sheer aesthetic of the camera body. Enough of the basic introduction. Now, let's talk about the camera itself. First thing, image quality. I will start this part with a not so hot take. Every film camera is basically
a camera obscura. That's pretty much anything that has a lens on the front and something to capture that light that's going through the lens on it.
It means that the final quality of the image is only influenced by the film stock you choose, the developing process of the lab or yourself, and the quality of the lens. And Leica is good at making lenses. Don't get me wrong, I don't mean that this zoom lens is as good as its prime lens equivalent, but to me, personally, compared to all the other film cameras I used, this thing is sharp. It's sharp, contrasty, and it's vibrant. Here's what I mean. See, I have this habit that every first roll I took on any new camera, I will use a cheap black and white. Because you never know the camera functions normally or not, right? You don't want to waste a portrait or a cinestill just to get a roll of seaweed, right? So I bought this Leica camera roughly the same time with this thing, my Leica AV1, a fully fledged SLR with the legendary Canon NFD 50mm f1.8. And of course, I shot black and white side by side using these two cameras. So most of the comparisons will between these two. I know. It's kind of unfair. One is SLR and one is point and shoot. One is 800 pounds and one is 90 quid. But I'm talking about my first impressions, right? these are indeed my first impressions. So, you know what I mean, right? Yeah, these are my thoughts. When I want to match the look of these two, often I found that I needed to dial up the contrast of the Canon one to match the Leica. So this thing is clear, sharp, and contrasting. And as for the color film goes, is also the same here to me. If your one is good, it's sharp, it's vivid, it has this pastel kind of look, even though I'm not using a portrait. The natural fallout is smooth, thanks to the physics. But personally, I just like the way Leica interprets color. It's sharper, more vivid, and I've never used a Leica camera before, but I think this is the so-called Leica look. It just had this special feeling and the image hits differently. Yeah, it's kind of hard to explain, so here's some pictures sample I took. First thing you can notice that the flare control is amazing. And I noticed that the Leica turns to render the blues in a more pleasing way, like this lake and the sky. More send photos later. After this, you may say, this is good, but this is no 800 pounds good. And then we have to talk about the usability of this camera. As we talked earlier that the film camera is basically a camera obscura. The function, the design of the camera do not affect the quality of the image. There's no color science behind this like digital ones. So when people are paying more for the body, they are actually paying for the usability and the functions. Well, first of all, not too many point-and-shoot cameras have, number one, exposure compensation from -2 to +2, 2, manual focus, 3, aperture priority mode, 4, an actual good lens and build quality. The CM is one of them. But the Mini Luxes also do that, you may say again. What a Mini Lux cannot do is to remember your settings. This thing remembers like the North. You do not have to tap multiple times to turn off the flash every time you want to turn on the camera, like a Mini Lux. You just switch it off and it remembers. It stays that way forever. And also, the interface of this back screen is intuitive. Even though it doesn't have a label on it, you can just still maneuver around it easily. You just tap the corresponding button next to the icon and rotate. That's it. No need to tap endlessly on the camera just to turn off the flash every time you want to take a picture. So all these factors combined make this camera unique enough already. Plus, it's a Leica. I mean, who doesn't want to have a Leica if you are seriously into film, right? But all these compliments don't mean that this thing is perfect. I do have some things that I don't like about this camera. First thing, of course, is the price. This thing is expensive. Of course, it is not expensive as a prime lens version, but it is still very expensive. So when you look at the category of high-end point-and-shoot zoom lens film camera, you do not have too many options, but you do have is this thing, the CM Zoom, its predecessor, the Mini Lux Zoom, and the Contax TVS series 1, 2, 3. And both of them are way cheaper. But it's more like a me problem rather than a it problem. Just kidding. Jokes aside, the camera does have some other shortcomings that I don't like. Number one, this thing is huge. Of course, it's not as big as, SLR, but as a point shoot goes, it's quite big. So this brick is definitely not pocketable. It might be jacketable, but you can put that in your coat pocket. But good luck putting the college tuition fee in your jacket pocket. You go out, taking some street photography you like, and you will come home alone with an empty pocket. So if you are rocking a normal prime lens CM, the volume is somewhat acceptable. just the body itself is roughly the same size as the T2. But if you are having a zoom version like me, this thing is way too big because the lens here is protruding out like a sore thumb. I can only put this in a tote bag or man purse, or just hang it around my neck, which leads to my second complaint. This camera only has one linear hole. Normally speaking, this will be just fine if I'm using a GR or Mu2 because they are one-handable, but there's no way you could twist this lens out and take off the cap with one hand. So most of the time I'm using it like a regular size rangefinder, and that's why I got this leather case just for the extra loop, so I can use it like a normal camera. Oh, by the way, it also comes with a original leather case, and the texture of the leather is just amazing. But I found unzipping it a little troublesome, so I mainly use that to store my spare film or something. Another thing is the lens cap. Maybe it's just me, but I live in this constant fear of losing the lens cap because it's just so light and so small. And if I lose this thing, my lens will have no protection at all, right? And I don't even know whether I can get a replacement or not. Probably not, or will be very expensive. So yeah. And my final complaint is also my biggest one. The dial of this thing is loose. 2 or 3 times out of 10, when I took this thing out of my bag, I will be in the manual focus mode. This is actually not a big deal, but there will be times that you forget about checking it. And since it's a rangefinder, you will not notice it until the final image is developed. So this is my first impressions for now, after a couple of rolls. Probably will do an update after several months. So actually, I'm also developing my thoughts on this thing while recording this. I'm feeling a little complicated right now. It's a great camera, definitely. And to be honest, since I personally prefer longer focal length, if I'm only allowed to keep one film camera, it probably will be this one. It is a combination of titanium build quality, excellent and versatile lens, reasonable size, and an amazing autofocus and improved usability. It is without a doubt the camera. But also, as a guy who already has Contax T2, Mu2 SLR, and even a medium format, I won't have too much time using the zoom since there always will be a better performer in a certain area. But again, it's a Leica. Do I really want to get rid of it? I don't know. So I'd like to know your ideas about this camera. Will you keep it in your arsenal? Let me know in the comment section down below. And until then, I will see you after the next roll. Peace.